Hey, good Tuesday morning, everybody. Welcome into the Volquest podcast. I am Eric Kane alongside Rob Lewis, Brent Hubbs, and Austin Price. Exterior Home Solutions brings us coverage of the Volquest podcast, local trusted since 1999. Give them a call today for a free estimate, 865-524-5888, or online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. Tennessee trying to find some players in the transfer portal. Did pick up a commit from the class of 2025 at the tight end position. Tennessee basketball rolled right over Ole Miss to begin SEC play. We got a lot to get into here today on the Volquest podcast. We will start, Austin, with some offensive line talk in the transfer portal. It was positioned to maybe be a big weekend for Tennessee on Thursday and Friday. Hosted 2 players, was trying to host 3. Kind of tell us where we're at on the offensive line in the transfer portal.
Well, obviously, Armaje Reed Adams, went back home, talked it over with his family. He's got a little one on the way, and he decided to stay home and close to that situation with Texas A&M. You can't blame the kid for that. It is interesting, knowing all that after the fact, why, he decided to even take visits. But, that one is, that one's done. We'll see what Lance Hurd elects to do. I don't know if he'll take another visit, and talking to some people, it feels like, it's going to be Tennessee or Oklahoma, one of the two. And he was at Tennessee for, a blink and Oklahoma for 2 blinks. I mean, it was 2 quick trips, and Oklahoma got a little bit more time with him, but I don't think that really matters in the grand scheme of things. I think this still boils down to just kind of fit and what he wants to do, and we'll see kind of where he's at. But I think you'll probably hear something from him if he's not taking any more visits in the next, 24 to 72 hours. And then, Diego Pounds is yet to announce his commitment to Ole Miss. I'm not sure he signed the SEC paperwork that would preclude him from visiting other SEC schools. And if he hasn't, then he could still, in theory, visit Tennessee this coming weekend. Percy Lewis, the Mississippi State tackle, could be in town or should be in town this coming weekend as well. So, Tennessee's obviously trying to add some help on the offensive line, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple things here for me that stands out. One, it can both be true, right? I mean, it was a rough weekend. Okay, Tennessee clearly is wanting to add offensive linemen in this class in the transfer portal. So you can't look at this and say, it's no big deal, right? I mean, it's a tough weekend. This is not what Tennessee had in mind on Thursday and Friday when they started visits. At the same time, too, they're going to line up and play football with offensive linemen, with some competent offensive linemen, come fall, regardless of what happens in the portal. But they need some help, and they're looking for some help. So it's not the extreme one way or the other, right? But you can't sit here and go, well, it's no big deal. It is a big deal because they brought in 3 high-profile guys or 3 priority guys for them. And right now they're on the, they could go 0 for 3 when you were hoping that they would go 2 for 3 and in a best case scenario, even take 3 for 3. I don't know that they would have ever gotten all 3 of them, but I don't know that they would have turned one of them down either. And so that's the reality of where it is. And I get everybody's, I get the sides that are just, it's maddening that they can't land anybody. And I get the side of the people. It's like, you guys are making too much out of transfer portal guys. The reality is Tennessee's still looking for help in the offensive line, and they were hoping to get some this weekend. And unless Hurd comes, it doesn't look like they're going to get any help out of the visitors this weekend. That's to me, that's the summation of the O-line transfer portal situation.
And Hubbard, don't you think part of the reason, and AP to Eric, that part of the reason that it's kind of exacerbated by the fact that you can't point to a lot of guys they developed that they've recruited and developed and turned into top shelf offense, and maybe that was in the 23 class, maybe that's coming. But if there were, if you could point to, 2 or 3 homegrown prospects that you had in the pipeline, I don't think that, first off, you maybe wouldn't have brought in 3 guys this weekend. And second off, I don't think that it would have kind of set off the panic.
No, I agree with that 100%, Rob. I mean, and again, we'll see where Sham is. And I mean, this is a huge spring for some of those guys, Vice and Lang, guys who have been here a year. Okay. And I mean, for the young guys, they need a whole year to borrow the old Derek Dooley line, to water that bamboo for development, right? I mean, I think Austin, that you got to be careful in saying, hey, this guy's plug and play. There are just a handful of high school plug and play guys out there. I mean, very few.
Did you say Dooley?
And so it's one of those things where you've developed and you've worked on the Shams and the Weiss and Langs and those guys for a year, right? You've helped develop them for a year. Where are they at? This spring's about finding out where those guys are at, and they need to be further down the road. Bustle, those guys, they you need to know where you're at with those guys this spring.
Yeah, you brought up a good point the other, to start, when you kind of jumped in to start giving your take, that both things can be true. Like CSW Vol, he loves to fly the offensive line flag, and nothing he says is inaccurate. Like Tennessee was third, they gave the third fewest sacks in the SEC. They had the second most rushing yards in the SEC. Statistically, Tennessee was great, right? I mean, like when you look at kind of what they did. Now, some of that is scheme on the running game. Some of that is scheme and getting the ball out of Joe's hands or Nico's hands, to make sure that they don't give up sacks. Now, they give up 6 in the bowl game, some of them on the offensive line, some of them not. But what also can be true is that there is no quality depth on the offensive line, and they've kind of put a Band-Aid on this thing by bringing back Spraggs, by bringing back John Campbell, by bringing back Cooper, and in theory, well, they were supposed to bring back Mincy, right? So, I mean, like, they put a Band-Aid on it. But, I mean, when you look at, like, the quality depth, that also can be not there. And so I think, for the offensive line room, they need to find somebody, whether that's they land Hurd, whether that's Diego Pounds decides to give them a visit next weekend, whether that's, Percy Lewis. Do they find a guard in the portal they like? Either way, like Tennessee needs to add a few more bodies that are quality to this offensive line room for the 2024 season.
Austin, it kind of looks like, and again, every prospect is different, both at the high school level and in the transfer portal. But the old saying kind of is, in high school, you want to get the last visit. In the transfer portal, you want to get the first visit. Look at Chris Brazel. Well, technically, he came here second. He was at Houston the week prior. But anyway, you look at Reed Adams. He went to A&M last week, came to Tennessee. He's not going to be at Tennessee. He's going to A&M. You look at Lance Hurd, Tennessee, then Oklahoma. Diego Pounds, North Carolina, and then never made it to campus. At least with Lance Hurd, is there any type of hope there that Tennessee will have kind of that lasting impression as the week goes on?
I think that this is something as we sit here on early Tuesday. We tape this on Monday. That I think that Lance Hurd will make some type of announcement early in the week. Like if he's not going to take other visits. Now, could he in theory decide to take the visit to Ole Miss? Yeah, sure he could, but it doesn't feel that way since Ole Miss is bringing in Gerald Mincy later in the week. Obviously, Ole Miss feels like they're in great shape with Diego Pounds. So I guess for my liking, this is something where I think you find something out in the next 2 to 3 days. And Tennessee, I think still should feel positive about Lance Hurd. I don't think Oklahoma knows anything for sure. Tennessee doesn't know anything for sure. And this is a kind of go back home, assess things with the team around him and talk it over with his mom. His mom was under the weather. She wasn't able to take these trips and, kind of review everything and go from there.
Yeah, Eric, I mean, for me to answer your question, I do think that in the transfer portal world, the earlier the visit, the better. Because these guys are not looking just to take fun trips, right? I mean, the old saying, it's a business trip. These feel like business trips, right? They're not bothered. Everybody at the point they're visiting, everybody's weight room is nice. Everybody's smoothie machine makes good smoothies in the nutrition bar, right? I mean, this is about what does the NIL world look like? What is the opportunity to play? Those are the things. I mean, these guys have been through the other side of it, where it's all new and nobody knows what it is. They've seen every song and dance and show, if you will, out there. So I do think that in a lot of ways, the first visit makes more sense, particularly when a guy's squeezing in 3 visits in 4 days. Right? Or he's doing 4 in 6 days. Everything kind of runs itself together a little bit. And typically, what are you more excited about? Right? You're more excited about the first place you go as opposed to necessarily the fourth place that you go. So I think in some cases it can lead, it can leave a better impression. And in a lot of cases, it can mean you don't take the extra visit somewhere.
Well, I would love
I'm
to.
good. I'm good. I'm not going to take another trip. I don't want to mess up this opportunity just to make sure the other one might be something I'm interested in or not. And so I do think in a lot of cases in the transfer portal world, early visit is better than the last visit. That's my opinion.
I would love to see some type of study on that, Hubbard. Like, like go back and like look at all the kids that, picked out of the portal and how many of them ended up, going to the first school they visited, and sometimes like it's a done deal when the kid goes in the portal, but sometimes it's not. But like, look at, Jermod McCoy, right? Like Tennessee's able to get him here before he goes to A&M, and then boom, it ends up being, Tennessee. So, I mean, like, I'd love to see kind of a case study on that because it does feel that way.
Let me ask you guys this, and Rob, Brent, AP, whoever, just jump in. If you were controlling these visits, if you were planning these transfer portal visits, because like you said, Brent, at this stage, everybody's got a nice weight room, everybody's got the smoothies, everybody's got all the bells and whistles. If you were planning these transfer portal visits, how would you go about them to show them what Tennessee is, what you have to offer, all in a sometimes just an hour's, amount of time?
For me, go ahead, Rob. You start.
I'll be quick. I mean, in this day and age, when you're talking about transfers, it's depth chart and NIL. I mean, if you hit those hard and quick off the top.
Yeah, Rob's right, Hubbard. Yeah. That's what matters. They don't care about seeing the nutrition program, the weight room. Like they've seen all that if they've come from any kind of big school hubs. I mean, like you and I had this discussion. Like I think Tennessee's probably got to kind of model their transfer portal visits differently than their high school visits. I don't think it can be the same kind of like, okay, let's just roll out the old standard, right? Like, I mean, I think you have to kind of attack these kids a little bit differently because they've been places, they've seen all this stuff. They don't care about what kind of smoothie machine you have. They care about what kind of money they're getting and are they starting.
Yeah, I mean, again, I said it a few minutes ago, Eric. These are different. This is a business trip. I mean, this is literally it's a job interview, so to speak. I mean, you're being recruited for the job. In a lot of cases, these guys are going to be somewhere for 9 months, 10 months. Mm-hmm. That other stuff's just not. It's about depth chart. Am I going to play the position that I want to play? Can I see through? And in many cases, they probably felt like they were misled by some people in the recruiting process coming out of high school. So you're naturally looking for something different, and you're streamlining what you're looking for. Okay, the photo shoot doesn't matter. You know what I mean? I know you don't do those anymore, but those things are just not important. This is a business decision. These guys are making a move. They're transferring. In a lot of cases, they're transferring from a place, Eric, that they like, but they're transferring because they're not playing, right? Or they're transferring because they want to be in a bigger stage to better their opportunity. So they're giving up some, quote, happiness to go somewhere to better themselves from a business standpoint in their football career. So, yeah, I mean, I think Rob's absolutely right. You better have some clear-cut meetings planned with the position coach. They've got to get a quick feel with the position coach they're going to play for, because they probably all realize the head coach is not that big of a deal because you don't talk to him a whole lot. The person you spend all your time with is a position coach. How can that guy develop me? Where are we at? What's my quick relationship building with him? And then what's the NIL deal?
AP, you look at Reed Adams, who, and with all three of these guys we kind of been talking about, I think it's safe to assume if they wanted to jump in the boat, they'd have a spot, right? Just a matter of if they would take 2 or 3 or whatever. But with Reed Adams, started 11 games at right tackle, could play some guard. Tennessee liked him at guard. Lance Hurd, a tackle. Diego Pounds, a tackle. You mentioned Percy Lewis as being another name out there as well. Is there any type of priority guard to tackle, or is it just strictly give me a body that can come in and compete to play, and then we can kind of figure out the rest?
Well, with Reed Adams, he was a guard, and they wanted him as such. With these other ones we've named, they're all tackles. I don't see them being ones that slide inside. They're all kind of 6'6", 6'7", long, big, kind of massive guys. And, so I think that Tennessee would love to add a guard, but the ones that, have visited last and are kind of potentially could visit this weekend are all still in that tackle frame. So Tennessee needs to add a tackle opposite John Campbell. And then, obviously, they'd love to add a guard to add to the depth with Carrick and Lampley.
Yeah, and I think the need for the tackle but just magnified itself with the Mincy news. And look, Mincy was coming back to the NCAA change or the court order changed the rule allowing him to transfer. And so when he was allowed to transfer a second time, then suddenly, while you were always going to look at a tackle if you could get a tackle, okay, now you're looking now you're in a different world for a tackle, because your priority for a tackle is much greater. So we'll see who they can visit. We'll see if they can get anything. And if you don't get anything here and some of those priorities that you get, to me, I'm not saying you shut your veteran guys down this spring, but man, I think your practice reps got to be 3-1, 4-1, those young guys versus your veteran guys. I mean, I'm not saying those veteran guys can't get better and don't need to get better, but you have to find out in the spring who you can drag along to be able to help you in the fall. And if not, then suddenly you're swinging for just whatever bodies are available in the spring period. But you got to find out. You got to find out where these guys are in the spring. Those guys who are entering their, heading into their second year that are around this program. Where are they at? How can they help you? I think that's got to be priority one for this offensive staff come spring ball. Because listen, you can work your receivers and find out what your young receivers are doing in 7-on-7, right? I mean, you don't have to play 11-on-11 with all your starters to find out if Mike Matthews can help with the starters. Or, I mean, you can play 7-on-7 and figure out what those guys can do. You got to line up in the trenches and you got to figure out where Vyson Lang is, where Sham is, where Aiden Bustle is. Those guys, you've got to find that out in the spring. That's got to be the priorities of 15 days on the offensive side of the ball, because you know where you're at tailback, right? Okay. I mean, you got an idea where you're going to, and you can figure out where you are at wide receiver, but tight end and offensive line from a physicality standpoint, that's the whole priority for me in spring practice.
Last thing before we move on, Rob, I do want to ask you this. Say Tennessee does not bring in a tackle before this, they don't get one before maybe the spring window opens. And you enter spring practice with kind of a hole at right tackle, a hole at left guard. You got veterans and guys who have played a lot of football for you. It's kind of a luxury, and Dane Davis, Jackson Lampley, and some others. But does that change your outlook on the fall if Tennessee's not able to get another body?
I mean, yeah. I mean, right now my outlook on the fall is probably influenced by what they have. But I mean, Dane Davis has played enough to where it's not just an outright panic, and I don't think. But yeah, I mean, I get why people are hoping that Tennessee improves there. I mean, there's a lot of pressure. I don't know if it's negative to call it pressure. There's also a lot of opportunity there for Sham in the spring. But yeah, I mean, I don't think you're going to see anything. And Brent, I would get your opinion. I don't think you're going to see anything in the spring from a coaching evaluation standpoint that's going to make you not feel like you need to add a guy.
Yeah, I mean,
is that fair? You think?
No, I mean, I think you're always looking to. I mean, first of all, you just need bodies. I mean, Austin mentioned that you just don't have enough depth at the tackle position from a body standpoint. So I think that's where it goes. But to answer your question, for me, Eric, I go back to the fact that they've rushed for over 2,000 yards the last 3 years. Scheme or not scheme, production's production. Okay, they've rushed for over 2,000 yards for 3 straight years. Never been done before at Tennessee. They had a limited number of sacks this year. And I think we all feel like Nico's probably more elusive than Joe Milton is. So from that standpoint, no, I don't think that it changes necessarily the outlook, because they've been really productive with one NFL guy in Darnell Wright. Now, I don't think they were as good in the red zone because you couldn't run it behind the right side against a crowded box.
Or short yardage.
I think those are things that need to be improved upon and that type of thing. But schematically, you've shown you can win and be successful and have success with an offensive line that's not grading out in the first 2 days of the NFL draft. So from that standpoint, you're probably okay. My biggest concern is depth in 24, and what in the world are you going to look like in 25?
And fairly or not, don't you think some of the narrative has really been influenced by that? They took 6 sacks in the bowl game. I mean, don't you feel like that's
If Joe Milton had gotten 6 sacks 6 times, Rob, there wouldn't be this gnashing of teeth. But if you let Nico, the prize possession, get sacked 6 times,
the prince that was promised?
Well, and
not wrong or indifferent.
Yeah, and the narrative would have been that Joe held the ball too long on 5 of the 6, probably, right? That it would have been Joe's fault on those deals. Listen, I mean, I think if you go back and look, I mean, Dane Davis played better against some other competition, Georgia and some other places, than he did against Iowa. I didn't think he played particularly well in that game. Jackson, Lampley in the run game, those guys played well, and I think Jackson played well in the bowl game overall. But at the same time too, people are still looking at stars, right? And these are guys that didn't get on the field this past year, and this is a team that didn't, in the games that they lost, they couldn't run the football. So I mean, I get all of that. I just don't think my outlook. I don't think if they land one of these guys, you go, man, they're a playoff team. The same way, if you don't land one of those guys, I don't think you think, man, they're really going to struggle. So if that makes them a luxury, I don't know. Are they a better football team if they add a transfer or 2 offensive linemen in the portal? I think absolutely. But again, as I said at the start, they're going to line up and play with some guys who've had experience, and this scheme has put them in a position to be successful every year Josh Heupel's been here.
Tennessee gets a tight end commit for the class of 2025. How good is that pickup? Plus, Tennessee basketball rolls over Ole Miss. That's more to come here on the Volquest podcast. Do want to give a quick shout out to our friends over at Game Time. You shouldn't have to worry about when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is it's an easy way to buy tickets for all your sports events, but not just sporting events, music, concerts, theater, comedy, all that and more at arenas and theaters near you. Killer last minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, the best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. That best price guarantee means if you find cheaper tickets in the same section, Game Time is going to credit you 110% of the value of that ticket. Plus, they have event cancellation protection, even job loss protection. They have your back. I encourage you today to download the Game Time app, create an account, use the promo code VOLS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account, redeem code VOLS, VOLS, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So big thanks to Game Time as always. And as always here on the Volquest podcast, we want to give a thank you to our friends over at Exterior Home Solutions.
Life happens, and damage to your home can be extremely stressful. That's why it's important to find someone who offers efficient, quality work with financing options. Exterior Home Solutions, they value not only family, but community. And they're who I call when life happens, and you should too.
Give them a call today. It's 524-5888 for a free consultation, a free estimates, or visit them online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. So it wasn't all bad news over the weekend, right? Tennessee did pick up a commitment from 2025 tight end Austin Price. Tell us what Tennessee's getting in the Texan native.
Yeah, Jack Van Dorselaer.
I was going to let you go ahead and lead off with his name there, so Good job.
I mean, the kid's got some natural ties to Tennessee. Dad went to Tennessee for a couple of years. Got family in the area. It has grown up in a house that really was fond of Tennessee football. And he got up here for a couple of games, was just blown away by it. The first guy that Alec Ablin offered, technically before Ablin was even announced as tight ends coach, but the first offer, and Abe spent the last year building a relationship with him, and it really paid off. Jack's a big kid, 6'5", 230. For a junior, a kid wrapping up his junior year of high school, that's a big kid. I mean, like from a weight standpoint, he's plays for one of the best programs in the state of Texas, South Lake Carroll, and again had offers from nearly everybody. So this is a highly coveted guy, a guy that's a 4-star across the board. Really impressive young man. And if you read his quotes, I mean, it's hard not to, if you're a Tennessee fan, it's hard not to get fired up, Brent, because I mean, he talks about representing the T on your helmet and wearing the colors the rest of his life. And he knew it was Tennessee. The first time he sang Rocky Top after the first score at the South Carolina game. And, I mean, he hit every right note in the interview. If you're a Volquest member, a Tennessee fan in general, to get fired up.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed you didn't find out whether he wooed or not during Rocky Top, but that's okay because that can be a divisive answer. Rob, the thing that I like about Jack when you look at him is this is not a big wide receiver who projects to be a tight end. This is a guy who's been developed as a tight end, and so many of these tight ends. And I know we're in a world of hybrids, but when you look at what Tennessee wants to do at the tight end position, that guy's got to be able to block and be physical. And I think this is a guy that you're probably not going to have to spend a couple of years teaching how to physically block because he's not just lined up and played big wide receiver ball out of his high school in Texas.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it maybe tells you, I don't know, probably not 4 years in, but prototypical, kind of what maybe what they want. I mean, I think Ethan Davis is a talent you take, no matter what, and hope you develop him. But they inherited Jacob Warren, who and really made it work at a high level. But yeah, I mean, like you talked about, Hubbard, this guy doesn't look like Jacob Warren. He doesn't look like Ethan Davis. I mean, this is this looks like a guy that can play in line in the SEC and also in 2025. And what's he going to look like when he gets here?
AP, you talked about like kind of checking the boxes, at least what he has to say about Tennessee, but in reviewing some of the quotes from Charles Power and checking out your interview and of course the impact analysis from Matt, it feels like he kind of checks those boxes on what Tennessee seeks in a tight end: in line, hand in the dirt, detached in the slot, out wide, blocking, a guy that's a willing blocker, H-back. Seems like he's got a lot of experience in that in high school already. And so sure, there's going to be a learning curve, of course, when he gets on campus, but maybe that curve won't be as steep.
Yeah, versatility, the ability. Again, he plays for one of the best programs in Texas, and that goes a long way. When you grow up in a system in the program where you learn how to do things the right way, you learn how to practice, you learn how to play. They use you in a number of different ways. You just are more ready, right? Like Tennessee, I think went through the bowl practice and really liked everything Jesse Perry brings to the table. Jesse Perry still hasn't pass blocked a whole lot because they ran the single wing at MTCS, but when you kind of get him down the road, how much better is he going to be? Well, for Jack, I mean, he's doing a lot of the things that they do here already, and so it does give him a chance a year from now to hit the ground running for spring practice and all that stuff. When we get to early 2025. So again, I think this is a big get. I think it's a big get for a guy like George McIntyre who's watching, who Tennessee lands in this class. The rubber starts to meet the road here very soon for him. And I think again, I think this was perfect timing for Alec Abelin, who now in 3 or 4 weeks went from enemy number one of the GQ to all of a sudden now he's gotten Holden Stays. He got another high school tight end, and the Harrison kid, and then now a huge get for the 2025 class.
So 5 commits right now, AP. What's to come in terms of junior days and potentially with some more 25 prospects in the next couple of weeks?
Well, Tennessee will have junior day coming up on the 20th. And so we'll have a lot of prospects in then. Again, I think that rubber will meet the road on a decision from George McIntyre before we ever get to that junior day. And we'll see. Nothing has changed in my mind in Tennessee's recruitment of George McIntyre. I feel like Tennessee's done a really nice job there. His relationship with Josh Heupel is huge. I think Joey Halsley and he have really bonded quite a bit the last few months. They've spent a lot of time on the phone together. And of course, when, George has been in town, they spend a lot of time together in town. And so, we'll kind of see where they go from there. But they'll try to get all those in-state kids in. Darius Jackson, Ethan Utley, Cam Sparks, you name them, they want to get them here. Joakim Dodson for the 2025 class. And then they want to get guys like David Sanders back in town, which is big. But, outside of that, it's just transfer portal watching. And we'll see, what Lance Hurd does. We'll see what, Tennessee elects to do with the rest of, the offensive line spots. And, do they look to, add anybody else, whether it be another transfer tight end, whether it be another piece of the secondary. The earth's kind of getting big in the window here as classes start coming up on the 22nd. So if they're going to get some kids in, the next week or so is going to be the time to do it.
All right, we'll finish off this edition of the Volquest podcast by checking in with a little Tennessee basketball. Rob Lewis, 90-64. There's 17 more SEC games left. Okay, so it's just a start, but what a start to SEC play. Ole Miss, probably a little overrated coming into the matchup, but was undefeated under a first-year head coach that knows how to coach some basketball. What did you like from this game, and how big of a statement was this for Tennessee?
Yeah, I mean, I just think you had to like the complete nature of the win. I mean, they were really efficient on both ends of the court. I mean, that was the most points that Ole Miss had given up this season, and the lowest point total for them offensively. I mean, that's a pretty nasty combination to slap on an opponent. And yeah, just complete a complete game. Eric, you mentioned I think Ole Miss was probably overrated at number 19, but I still think that's a solid basketball team. And Chris Beard is a proven commodity as a head coach. I'll be surprised if that's not a 500 type team in SEC play. In Tennessee just manhandled them. And they got the 90 points with their two leading scorers, Josiah James and Dalton Connect, having 8 points each. I mean, that shows you sort of the depth, the versatility they have on the offensive end. And Tennessee was picked to win the SEC in the preseason. And boy, they start on an opening weekend. I mean, they looked the part.
For me, Rob, it's again, Jonas is not going to do what Jonas Adu did every night against Ole Miss. But if he's going to play with that kind of assertiveness and aggressiveness in the post, doesn't it change the way teams scout Tennessee and prepare for Tennessee? Because he's not just a body in there to rebound and play defense, right? And now from a defensive standpoint, you got to deal with something with Tennessee that you really haven't had to deal with the last couple of years. Is that fair?
I think it's more than fair. I mean, maybe I'm overhyping it, but I think Jonas has been the biggest development, on this team in 14 games in the first half of the season. It's just what you said. I mean, it just completely changes the way you have to prepare for Tennessee. I mean, when you think about him being capable of putting up 24 and 10, I mean, this is still, the strength, most of the firepower is on the perimeter, but for them to have a guy that you can get that kind of offense out of in the post changes everything about what you thought you knew about this team in October, in November. He's the second leading scorer in the team right now, Hubbard, after going for 24 the other day. And you could have took every dollar I had if you would have make that bet, back on Halloween.
Yeah, Jonas. Yeah, Hubs doubt you. Yeah, and he said you were singing off key in that car with Russell Bevan. Yeah,
yeah. I don't know. It's one of those things where, and I know you're joking, AP, but Tennessee's not had that kind of true kind of post presence, a true back to the basket kind of guy. Who's a big body that can really use angles, and he's shown his left hand and his right hand both. I'm impressed with what he's done. I don't know which bet I would have felt better. I would have probably felt better about the Zakai bet, I guess, Rob. But I'm surprised that he's at the level he's at right now as he comes back from the injury. His development, where he's at, the pace that he's at right now, and Jonas's growth has just been, to me, puts Tennessee in a different spot early in January than I thought they were going to be in.
Completely agree. And, factor in that, Jonas did that against a really solid defensive front line.
It was big. They're big.
Not the best bigs that Tennessee's going to see, but maybe the best defensive duo, of big guys that they'll see. And Adu goes for 24 and 10. It's one game. You don't want to go crazy, but I can promise you other coaches and other staffs around the league that are seeing that are going, man, that adds a whole different dimension that you got to worry about. And you mentioned Zakai. Rick keeps saying, I don't know if he's all the way back. I don't know if he's all the way back, man. If he's not, then the rest of the league had better look out. Because, he looks great right now, and not just physically. I think he's really improved. He's grown as a guy, as a complete point guard, just knowing what it means to run a team. Having a feel for what he needs to do to help everybody around him, not just. I just think he's really seeing the big picture in a way he hasn't before this year.
Rob, what was Rick Barnes mad about his young players over? What was that about? Because we're playing starters, and it was clear in the locker, in the social media post game locker room, he was making some kind of statement to those guys? What's the message to the young players? What do they need to do? Because Tennessee not going to play 17 games with that short of a rotation, right?
I don't think so, but man, he's pretty clearly just not going to give guys. He's not going to say here's 5 minutes. Go crazy, guys. And I don't think he's necessarily so. I don't think it's angry so much as he's just proven a point to them about how hard you really have to work to get minutes. And yeah, I think anger would be a strong word. He's just like saying, hey, if you don't believe me here, you're not going to play. I'm not mad about it. I'm just showing you this is the standard. You're not there yet. One of those young bigs is going to have to play some, either by foul trouble or, injuries down the road. But man, I don't think he's got a luxury in the backcourt. And right now, to me, it's going to be hard for Freddie or Cam Carr to really carve themselves out any kind of meaningful role.
Out the door here, Rob, tell us about Mississippi State. Of course, that's coming up tomorrow night on the road at 7:00.
Man, disappointing loss for them, this weekend at South Carolina. I mean, South Carolina's been a nice surprise, but Mississippi State's been a bit of a disappointment this year. Would bring him back, quite a bit. Tolo Smith is a guy that everybody, it seems like he's been in the league forever, but they'll be hungry after dropping that one on the road. And, for them, I think 11-3 after that loss to South Carolina, not a, awful year, but that was a team that started off ranked in the preseason and has not probably lived up to the hype. So they'll be hungry, and, nobody wants to start 0-2 in league play. So Tennessee will be going into a little bit of a hornet's nest against the team that's got their backs to the wall, already.
Well, one last thing, Rob. Any update on the status of Brandon Huntley Hatfield? Where's he at now?
Got no update.
Smoky Dog Nation.
I've got no update. And I will say the Mississippi State, I mean, they didn't play a strong non-conference schedule, but everybody would be looking at them a lot different. They had an ugly loss to Southern. I think it was. Pretty sure it was Southern in December that was kind of hung around them and created a little bit of stench.
Yeah, I thought they were going to steal that game at South Carolina. They just couldn't get a stop in the last 3 minutes of the game. I mean, they were right there, and South Carolina did some. They fouled. They fouled a 3-point shooter and gave up a 4-point play late to give them a chance. And I mean, I don't know that Mississippi State got more than 2 stops in the last 4 minutes of that game. South Carolina just found ways to score. Defensively, it really let them down the stretch in that game for them to not have a chance to win on the road and steal that one after not playing very well.
And we'll see how good South Carolina. South Carolina's a surprise right now, but at 13-1, but they haven't played really anybody. The only ranked team they played, Clemson, they lost to. So that's the jury definitely out on them, but they're a little intriguing.
Is this Kentucky and Tennessee? Do you think they've just to this point they've separated?
I think it is, man. Ken Palm loves Auburn. He's got Auburn ranked. I want to say 4th in the country. I think Tennessee's 3rd, Auburn's 4th. I'll look this morning, but Ken Palm loves Auburn. I think it's Tennessee and Kentucky. I have a lot of respect for Ken Palm and his numbers crunching, so I'll throw Auburn in there, with them for the time being. But I think those 3 teams are clearly separated.
Everything you need to know leading up to Tennessee at Mississippi State coming up tomorrow can be found at Volquest.com before the game, during the game, and of course post-game. Of course, Tennessee in the transfer portal and Tennessee recruiting. It never stops. All the best coverage of Tennessee athletics, football, recruiting, basketball, and baseball, all at Volquest.com. Exterior Home Solutions, it puts East Tennessee's community first. They are rooted in trust and are the first choice for roofing and exterior home renovations. You can give this number a call today for a free estimate, 865-524-5888, or visit exteriorhomesolutions.com online to check it out for yourself. For Brent Hubbs, Austin Price, Rob Lewis, I'm Eric Kane. Appreciate you guys for being here and listening to us here on the Volquest Podcast.